Hi, everybody. We are here in week 1 of distance learning, our remote learning here until the end of the school year. And what we're going to be doing is working through these etudes. Now, let's make sure we all understand a couple things here. Each week, you're going to have one new section of this full page to do. This week, we are only working on the theme, which you can see right up there. This week, we're only doing the theme, so we're only doing the first 8 measures. Next week, we'll be doing just variation 1. The week after that, just variation 2, and so on. At the very end, the very final week, you're going to need to play the entire page, one recording. So you will have worked on all of the individual components, and then at the very end, you'll have to do that full page. And for those of you who are interested, that full page playing is also going to double as your wind ensemble audition. For those of you who are interested in having it count as your audition. Okay? So let's just be clear on that. So what I'm going to do here, the very first thing, is I'm going to play the theme from beginning to end so you can have an idea of what it's supposed to sound like. I'll play it through beginning to end, and then we'll get in to the individual components, how to practice it. I'll play it through a couple more times again at the end. Feel free to play along if you would like. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to have my metronome going here the whole time. All right? Now, it does say up there, it says dotted quarter note equals 60 plus. So I'm going to keep it at 60 right now. It might sound better at a faster tempo, but since you're probably watching this video and doing this now for the first time, we're going to go with a tempo a little bit on the slower side. So I'm going to get my metronome going. Now, for 6/8, remember 6/8 time is really just like 2/4, but with triplets. Instead of 1 and 2 and 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to set my metronome to 60 beats per minute, and then I'm going to turn the triplet on, because that's going to be the easiest way for me to get that triplet pulse. Turn that up a little bit. So there's my rhythm going through, there's my tempo. So again, I'm going to play it through beginning to end right now, and then we'll get into breaking it down and how to practice it. 1, 2, 3. And that's it. That's all I have to do. So again, I'm going through, playing it through, beginning to end, but now let's break it down to the individual components. So the first thing we're going to tackle are notes and rhythms. And of that little group, we're actually going to tackle the rhythms first. I can set my instrument down here for a second. So it is 6/8 times, so I want to make sure I'm feeling that 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a. As I'm looking through the music here, the first thing I want to identify are the strong beats. Now, because 6/8 time is 3/8 notes to a beat, this is actually pretty easy to find the downbeats. For example, in measure 1, well, I know beat 1 is the very first note, but beat 2, where's beat 2 going to be? Well, it's going to be after those first 3/8 notes. And since they barred them all three together, 1, 2, 3, I can do that all the way through. I can find beat 1, beat 2, beat 1, beat 2. So I want to find that all the way through. Next thing I'm going to do, again, I'm going to leave my metronome on, and I'm just going to count through the entire thing. Okay? So 1, 2, beginning, count. 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, 1 and a 2, a 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, a 1 and a 2 and a 1. Now, you can't see it, but I'm also tapping my toe here as I go. Helps me keep that beat. I'm going to do the exact same thing, only this time I'm going to clap and count at the same time. Okay, clapping and counting. Feel free to do this along with me if you'd like. 1, 2, here we go. 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, 1 and a 2, a 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, a 1 and a 2 and a 1. Okay, very important that our rhythms are solid before we try to add in the notes. Now, If you're struggling a little bit here on the rhythms, the first thing you could do if you wanted, instead of jumping in and doing the whole thing rhythmically, is just do it in two measure chunks. You can look at the music and see it's set up pretty well for two measure chunks. We have the first two, we have the second two, third two, and then the final two, okay? So you can go through and do that in two measure chunks if you'd like. In fact, I'll do that for you one time. And what I'll do is I'm just gonna go through, I'll do the first chunk, take a little break, second chunk, take a little break, and so on. I'm still gonna clap and count, but if you'd like to do this along with me, just to make sure you're good on your rhythms, please feel free. 1, 2, here we go. 1 and a 2, a 1, 2, little break. 1 and a 2, a 1 and a 2, next chunk. 1 and a 2 and a 1, 2, up. 1 and a 2 and a 1. There you go. So we're good on our rhythms, at least with counting them. Another thing you could do is just play the rhythms on one note. So I'm not going to clap and count. I'm going to play it through all the way, just on, and we're in the key of concert F, or at least mine is in the key of concert F. Some of you might have it be in a different key. You can use whatever note you'd like. So I'm going to play through the rhythms all on concert F. I'm not doing dynamics, I'm not doing articulations, I'm just playing it through beginning to end, all on concert F. 1, 2, here I go. And that's it. Okay, so it's a great thing to practice as you're going through. Now, you could also do that like we did before and take it in two measure chunks. I'm not going to do that right now, but that would be a great thing for you to do on your own if you wanted to feel a little bit more confident with your rhythm. Now, we have the rhythm in there. Now we're going to focus on the notes. So I'm not going to be using my metronome here for a second. I'm just going to be playing the notes one at a time. Now, there's nothing weird here with regards to the notes. We're in the key of concert F, so it's an easy scale. So I'm feeling the key of concert F. No big deal there. I do have one accidental right towards the end of the fourth measure there. You can see in measure 6, it looks like another accidental, but that's not really an accidental. That's just kind of reminding you, hey, it's back to being a natural note. That's all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the notes one at a time. No rhythm. I'm just going to play the notes and make sure I'm good there. If I miss any of the notes, that gives me a chance to say, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. In fact, I might even make a couple mistakes in here on purpose just so you can hear how that would go. But starting at the beginning, one note at a time. Wait a minute. That was too low. For my part here, in measure 5, I'm supposed to be going from D to B. But I didn't get D to B. I only got D to F sharp. So now it doesn't matter what instrument you're playing. It's about listening to the note coming out of your instrument. What I just played, again, looking at measure 5. But I can look at those notes and see they're a lot further apart than that. So there's got to be some alarm bells going off. Just because I pushed the right button doesn't mean it was the right sound. So I'm going to start in measure 5. I'm going to make sure I get enough air to get that upper note. And that's it. Easy notes here. A couple spots to look out for. Nothing crazy again. But in the second to last measure, in measure 7, I have this scale leading up to the end. And just before that, in beat 1, in between the second and third note of beat 1, there's a skip. Part of me wants that to be a full scale, but it's not. So look out for that. Look out for those spots where you kind of want it to be one thing, but it's actually something else. So that's something to look for as you're practicing. Now, for you, it might be a different spot, but that's what it was for me. So I practiced my notes, I've practiced my rhythms. Let me turn my metronome on and play it through here. I'm just focusing on notes and rhythms right now. That's it. 1, 2, here I go. Notes and rhythms. I got it. Now, if I tried to turn that in, though, it would not really be an acceptable assignment yet. I did the notes and I did the rhythms, but man, that's the bare minimum you got to do all the time anyway. So I have other things that I want to add in now. I should make a note here before I jump into those other things. Don't be afraid to, again, take it in 2-measure chunks. In fact, I'll do that for you one time. Just like we did before on the rhythm, except now we're going to be playing the notes and the rhythms. I'll go 2 measures, little break, next 2 measures, just for practice purposes. 1, 2, beginning. 1, 2. 1. One, two. So it'd be a great way for you to go through and practice. Now, I've got my notes and I've got my rhythms. What's next? Well, I have a couple choices. I could do dynamics. I could do articulations. I could work on the phrasing. In this case, I think I'm going to go with articulation because the articulations here are actually pretty easy, so it's an easy one for me to knock out. I'm looking at this and I see a whole lot of slurs. So that should be easy to do. The only thing I want to watch out for is to make sure I don't let it turn into one giant slur. For example, it would be really easy to slur the entire first line and then slur the entire second line. I don't want to do that. I want to make sure I tongue where I'm supposed to be tonguing, but I don't want to be tonguing anywhere else. So, good way to get you thinking about your articulation is to actually practice it all one way. So the first thing I'm going to do, even though I have a lot of slurs, I'm going to play the whole thing, but all tongued. Right now, my focus is playing everything articulated. 2, here I go. So my focus there is just playing everything tongued. Now I'm going to play the whole thing slurred. One giant slur. Now it's only 8 measures, and there's only 2 beats per measure, so I'm pretty sure I can do this in one breath if I take a big one at the beginning. So I did all tongued. Now I'm going to do all slurred. 1, 2, beginning. Okay. Now, is it supposed to be all tongued? No. Is it supposed to be all slurred? No. This isn't about playing it all one way. It's really just about getting you thinking about your articulation. So I'm focusing on my articulations now. And you could go in and do it other ways. You could tongue every beat 1. You could tongue every beat 2. You can do that in any number of different ways. But that's up for you to decide for you. So I've done some work on my articulation, so now I can play it through. Maybe I'm just going to do the first line for right now, but now I'm going to play it through and tongue only where I'm supposed to. The beginning of every, in this case it winds up being every odd numbered measure. I tongue at measure 1, I tongue at measure 3, and so on. So I'm just going to do line 1 though. Again, I'm always using my metronome here. 2, beginning. That's it. Easy articulations on this one. Easy articulations. Okay? So I've done my notes. I've done my rhythms. I've done my articulations. Now I'm going to add in my dynamics, and I do have some more dynamics here than I have really articulations. Now I notice though in my dynamics, all I have are mezzo forte and forte. Other side, there it goes. Other side, forte. I only have two dynamics, which can be a little bit boring. Now, I don't want to overdo it. I'm not going to stretch this out to suddenly be pianissimo and fortissimo. I'm not going to do that. But I might bring my mezzo forte down a little bit just so I can hear the contrast a little bit more. Okay? So, different ways I could practice this. I could just play like a sustained concert F and just do the dynamics that I see. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and play it. I'm going to do my notes, I'm going to do my rhythms, I'm going to do my articulations. But I'm also going to try and follow those dynamics. Two, beginning. Now, while the dynamics here are certainly not difficult, you want to be careful you're not going on autopilot, okay? Let's take the last two measures. That scale is leading up. Normally on a scale leading up, we would crescendo the notes as we go. But in this case, it's actually written as a decrescendo. So it's an easy spot for you to go on autopilot and do the opposite of what it says. You just want to make sure you're paying attention. Okay, so that's an easy spot. Another thing you want to look out for is that forte at the beginning of measure 5. You have a crescendo in measure 4 that it should lead you into it, but a lot of times what we do is we shortchange that crescendo and it only comes up a little bit, and then we hit the forte and it's suddenly very loud. So you wind up with something like this. I'm starting in measure 3 right now. So I hit measure 5 and I just burst through on that forte instead of carrying the crescendo all the way through like I should. That crescendo should lead me right to the forte. I shouldn't just crescendo a little bit and then suddenly jump to forte. Okay? The other thing you want to watch out for is right away at measure 1, it says mezzo forte, but you're also starting at the bottom of a crescendo. So I'm going to make sure I start that quiet enough so that I can actually hear a difference. If I start it too loud, I don't have anywhere to go. Okay, so start quiet enough at the beginning. In measure 4, make sure that crescendo actually carries you through to the forte. And then finally, in the very last two measures, make sure we actually get a good little decrescendo there instead of the crescendo like you might want to do. Okay? So, done my notes, I've done my rhythms, I've done my articulations, and I've added in my dynamics. The last thing that I have here is the phrasing. Now, this goes hand in hand with the dynamics. And in fact, in this case, the dynamics are going to dictate the phrasing. Okay? Now, a younger player, a more immature player, is probably going to take a breath every two measures. 2, beginning. All the right dynamics, all the right notes and rhythms in the world don't make up for that really odd phrasing. Those breaths every two measures really break up the musicality. Well, it's no big deal. We're all smart people here, and we know to take 4-bar phrases. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so play the first line, take a breath, play the second line. Waiting to see if anybody notices the problem with that. And some of you are maybe figuring out, other side, it's that crescendo. We know that we're also not supposed to breathe at the peak of a crescendo. It ruins the moment. But then where am I supposed to breathe? I have bad news for you. I think this thing sounds the best if you play all of it in one breath. One breath beginning to end. Now, I said this a little bit ago, but maybe you just kind of glanced over it. We're used to playing 4-bar phrases. That's not a big deal. But we're also used to having 4 beats in a measure. 4 measures, 4 beats. We're used to going 16 beats in one breath. In this case, since it's only 2 beats per measure, it takes me 8 measures just to get to the 16 beats. So I can do this. If I take that big breath at the very beginning, I should be able to make it through to the end. And that decrescendo at the end is going to help me out if I'm running out of air anyway. So, I have my metronome going. I'm going to get my notes. I'm going to get my rhythms. I'm going to do my dynamics. I'm going to do my articulations. But I'm also going to watch my phrasing. And in this case, it really just winds up being one breath for the whole thing. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Now, if you're on an instrument and you're struggling to make it the 8 measures, maybe you're a tuba player and you just have a huge instrument, or maybe you're a flute player and half your air isn't even going into the flute anyway. Something you could do, if you're close, just speed it up a little bit. Now it says 60 plus. You can choose whatever tempo you would like. It does not have to be 60. If you think it sounds better at 70, 80, whatever, go ahead and do it. If I speed it up here just a little bit, I'm going to put it at 70, which in 6/8 is a little bit of a bigger jump than it might be in 2/4. But I'm going to take my big breath at the beginning, and I'm going to go through and do it the exact same way, see how I feel at the end with regards to my breath. 1, 2, 3. Now, I've been playing it at 60, and if I was going to play it at 70, I would probably go back and do a little bit more practicing just to feel comfortable with that tempo. But I'll tell you this right away, I did feel better at the end with regards to my breath. At 60 beats per minute, if I don't take that big full breath, I'm not going to make it. But at 70 beats per minute, I feel a lot more comfortable at the end. Now, I am going to slow it back down here to 60, just because that's where we've been playing it. And I've done my notes, I've done my rhythms, done my articulations, done my dynamics, and I've done my phrasing. That should be it. At this point now, it's just about making enough recordings until I find one that I really feel good about. Okay? Now, I played it for you at the very beginning, and I'm going to play it for you again here just before I end. Okay? If you want to play along with me, please feel free to play along with me. Remember, we're back at 60 beats per minute. 1, 2, here we go. There you have it. Couple things to remember. Watch your dynamics. Watch your breathing. Make sure you're playing the notes that you actually need to be playing. The very last note, your tendency is going to be to cut that note short. Make sure it fills up a full 2 beats. 1 and 2 and off. Okay? Now, if you have questions, feel free to ask. If you want to look ahead and start looking at some of the other variations, okay, feel free. Next week, we'll get into variation 1, but there's no reason you can't look ahead to start working on that on your own. I hope this has been helpful for you. Do spend time practicing it. It's more than just the notes and rhythms. Even though the theme is the easiest one we have going on, you really want to set yourself up for success to sound awesome. Good luck, and don't be afraid to reach out. Ask me or ask your peers for help if you need it. Thank you, everybody.